Welcome to Simple Shop Creations, and my name is Kurt. And in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how I mill this big piece of cherry wood. Let's continue on. So here's a close-up of the piece of wood. As you can see, it's kind of dirty and scraggly and looks like it was thrown around in the back of a truck for a while there. So what I'm going to do next, and you'll see what I do next, is I'm going to start to brush it off. Now here I'm just using a plain old small brush that I use this to scrape off all or to brush off all the dirt and grime that this particular wood has on it. And as previously seen, you can see how gnarly looking that piece of wood is. Now once I'm done with brushing off the piece of wood, we're going to go to the next step, which will be jointing down one side of that block of wood on my joiner. So let's go there next. So here we are, we're at the joiner here, and you can see it's a jet joiner. It's a 6-inch joiner, and then it's a 1 horsepower joiner. Now there, the block of wood is just under 6 inches in width. It's approximately about 4 inches in height, and probably about 22 inches in length. So here I'm just going to go ahead and start to join the one side down flat, and then I'm going to flip it and then cram it up to the fence so I can joint the side of it so I have one side that's perfectly square to each other, so when I go to the planer and all that stuff, it starts to even out and you'll have a square block of wood all the way around. So with that, let's just go ahead and continue on watching me joint that piece of wood. And also, while you're watching this, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below, hit that bell button if you choose to. So let's just continue on with watching the jointing process of this piece of wood. So once we're done jointing, the next step will be to move over to the planer and then flatten down the other side of this block of cherry. Hey, we finally made it to the planer stage. If you're looking at the cherry block on top of the planer, you can see that the right side of the block is higher than the left side. So we need to trim that down and make it parallel to the bottom of the cherry block, which was flattened when we used the jointer. This will take a few passes, but it'll eventually get done in a few minutes. Now let's talk about the planer. The planer is a 13-inch CUTECH planer. It has individual knives. It's not helix. It's called spiral Cutterheads, I guess is what CUTECH calls it. It's been a good planer for a few years. As for snipe, there's really no problems with this planer when it comes to snipes. There's a couple techniques you can use. You'll see while I'm planing that I'll start to angle the cherry block through the planer, which will help prevent snipe. Another way is if your board is almost as wide as your planer, you can't send it in an angle. You can send boards in front of it, send boards in behind it, or you can lift the back up as it goes through, then walk around to the front and lift the front up. So there's a bunch of ways you can control snipe on this particular planer. So once we are done with the planing portion of this milling process, we can stay on the planer, we can plane the side, or we can bring it over to the table saw. In this case here, I'm going to bring it over to the table saw instead of using the planer again. So right after we're done with the planing or watching the planing, we'll move over to the table saw. So here you can see I'm going to replace my original blade in there. It's just a saw stop original blade. It came with the table saw with another saw stop, but the titanium blade. I only used 2 blades basically. I do have a flat top blade and a dado blade, but those are the two. The steel one or the silver one that's popping out, I just use for construction lumber and or pallet wood or wood that I'm not familiar with. The titanium blade there, the gold one, is what I use for everything else. They're both pretty thick, kerfed an eighth of an inch each. But as you view this cutting that I'm doing with the cherry block, notice the throat plate and what happens to the throat plate. Now nothing serious happens, actually nothing happens other than the wood gets burnt and my cut is not as flat as I want it to. Before we continue on with viewing the rest of this video here, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Let's talk a little more about the table saw. I had this table saw for approximately, I guess, 5 years now. It's a 1 3/4 horsepower table saw. Really have no issues cutting anything with it, even with the thicker blades that I do use. Also, I did convert it over to the 250 volt system. I really have no plans to go up to the 3 horsepower since I did convert it over. I don't know why I converted it, but I did. So with that, just enjoy the rest of the video as I'm going to be finishing up the cut there. To correct my burn marks and the uneven cut there on the side, I went back to the planer and then just planed it down 2 or 3 passes and it was flat, which you'll see at the end of this video. So there you have it. The cherry block of wood is now completely milled. Now the cool thing about this, in a second here, you'll see that I will pop in a second piece of cherry wood that actually was from the same piece of that. I just cut them in half because I was using the unfinished product to jack up, or I slid them underneath the tires of my Mustang to get my Mustang up higher because I had to do some stuff. Much safer than using jack stands with a jack. So once you get the car jacked up, get the tires up high enough, you just slide those pieces underneath, and then you can rest your car down on top of them. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video and see my process of milling up rough lumber, and all have yourself a very healthy and wonderful day. Until the next video.